BTN Live is back with our Kay Jewelers signature moment. Kirk Cousins to B.J. Cunningham back in 2011. Michigan State knocking off Ohio State in the mist inside the horseshoe, 10-7 in a defensive struggle. That touchdown pass more than enough for a Michigan State win. Rick Pizzo and Gerry DiNardo back on BTN Live, joined by the man who threw that pass, Kirk Cousins, former Michigan State and current Washington Redskins quarterback. Well, Kirk, it's nice that it was only a few years ago that you were in the Big Ten because you played in the inaugural Big Ten championship game as Michigan State earns its way back to take on Ohio State this year. What do you recall about playing in that game back in 2011?
Playing in that game was one of the highlights of my entire college career. Going into the game, because it was the inaugural championship game, I wasn't really sure what to expect, didn't know what it would feel like. But I remember being in warm-ups in the early part of that game, feeling like there was something special about it, and there's an atmosphere in that place that's similar to a bowl game, and the fact that you're playing for the entire Big Ten championship in one 60-minute game made it really special. And we had a great game that day, went back and forth. There were a lot of great players on both sides of the ball, and we came up a little bit short, which I'm still a little bit bitter about. Probably will be to the day I die, but fortunately the Spartans are back in it this year. It'll be fun to watch.
Kirk, most of us are really surprised with the development of Connor Cook. How about you?
Well, I always felt like he had a lot of ability, and from a recruiting standpoint, they got a guy who has a strong arm, a lot of athleticism. He had all the tools, and it's just a matter of, like any young player, developing those tools, harnessing them, learning how to make good decisions and manage the game, and that takes time for anybody. And so the question was, is he ready to do that? And like you said, he has shown, if he's continued to play, that he is ready and that he's made great decisions. And with as good of a defense as the Spartans have, you don't have to ask him to do a whole lot. And he's done a great job managing the game and then making plays when he needs to. And so I've been very, very pleased with how he's played, and think that being that he's only a sophomore, he's got even better days ahead.
So, Kirk, explain to us what a young quarterback has to overcome to develop like Connor has done it. I mean, what are some of the specific challenges?
I think the biggest challenge of a young quarterback is they just haven't played enough, haven't gotten enough reps, haven't seen enough film yet, spent enough time with the coaches to really be able to manage the game at the level that a great quarterback has to do it, whether it's the snap count, making sure everybody's on the same page, getting everybody in and out of the huddle, avoiding penalties, not turning the ball over, getting to the right place every time. All those little things, especially when you factor in crowd noise and the blitzes the defenses now will throw at you, there's a lot to think about, and it takes failure sometimes, and it takes learning the hard way before you're able to avoid those mistakes. And as a result, a lot of young quarterbacks struggle. I mean, if you look at Braxton Miller 2 years ago against us in the horseshoe, he had a tough day. But now he's been playing very, very well, and I think it's because of that experience he's gained. So all young quarterbacks go through that, but I think Connor's done a great job of picking everything up very quickly.
We're talking with former Michigan State quarterback Kirk Cousins, who holds the school record for wins, total offense, passing touchdowns. And Kirk, Mark Dantonio is such an interesting guy. I always consider him to be a gentleman who is not as well known by the public as they believe, much more well known by his players, and a guy who gives off this confidence and this swagger that seems to emanate from his players. What do you remember about your relationship with Coach Dantonio and the way that he relates to all the players who wear that Michigan State uniform?
Well, you hear a lot of stories about college coaches who are just maybe a little bit shady, or you wonder how much they're operating with integrity or how much they're doing things the right way. And never once did I think about that with Coach Dantonio. He's always been somebody who's gone about his business with integrity, who's been very transparent, who wants to do things the right way, who cares about his players as people, not just as football players. He doesn't use people. He invests in them to help them succeed and go to where they want to go. And I always felt that from Coach Dantonio, and it's made a huge difference because as a result, his players trust him. They believe in him. They know he has their best interest at heart. And I would be surprised to see if there's another team in the country that has better chemistry amongst its players than the Michigan State Spartans this year and in recent years, simply because of the coaching staff that they have and the head man and Coach Dantonio.
So, Kirk, does he change much in a week like this, or a bowl week, or a championship week? How does his personality adjust to the situation?
I think whenever it came around to big games like Michigan week or playing a school like Ohio State or the championship game, there was an added sense of urgency. A lot of times Coach would close off practice to the media or to family members, just to heighten the sense of urgency and intensity. But at the same time, nothing dramatically changed, and he would always tell us they all count one. You know, each game is just as important as the next. So I think if you get a little too hyped or a little too excited, you make the moment bigger than it really is. But that being said, I don't know that there's been a Michigan State game that he's coached there in his, 5 or 6 years now there at the school that's been as big as the one he has coming this Saturday. So it's fun to think that he's taken the programs to such new and greater heights.
Now, Kirk, I know quarterbacks and all former offensive players love to talk about offense. We would be remiss not to bring up this Michigan State defense, which has been one of the best in the nation this year. Your thoughts on the unit that likes to call itself the Spartan Dogs?
Yeah, the Spartan Dogs have really shown up this year. I mean, they just obliterated opponents and kept them from being able to do much of anything on offense. It's the kind of total dominance that I remember watching from the 2002 Ohio State defense when they won it all and had such a great year. So they really, defense is what makes them go. It's the heart and soul of their team, and it's fun to watch all those guys play. Unfortunately, we're probably going to lose a few to the NFL after this year, but with the way Coach Dantonio is recruited, the hope would be that he can just reload and this kind of defensive dominance can continue for years to come.
Well, Gerry, before we say goodbye to Kirk, we should mention that hearts are breaking all throughout Washington, D.C. Recently engaged, Kirk, so congratulations to you and your bride-to-be, and good luck not only with that, but good luck, of course, rest of this NFL season with the Redskins.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys. Look forward to watching on Saturday night.